Alright, everyone. Back with a 1 week update or follow-up review on this phone. This phone, as you know, if you've seen my previous videos, is the iPhone 7 Plus, 128 gig in the space gray. So, I would have to say this phone is great as I expected, and I kind of want to go over some real-world stuff. I think a lot of times when you see reviews, like real-world things aren't addressed. It's just people looking at the aesthetics of the phone and, some of its features, but just not being out in the real world. And so the test, and kind of reviews, they don't a lot of times reflect the results that you'll see in the interactions that you'll have with your phone whenever you're out in the real world. And one thing that was really cool is that I got this phone shortly before I went to Vegas, so I really didn't have much time to fiddle with it before I left, which kind of gives me a unique perspective in that, I wasn't like a pro before I left, so, it was really like a new phone to me. I've had an iPhone back in the day. I had the iPhone 3G, which was many moons ago. But anyway, I have a spec case with this phone. Like I said, if you've seen my other review, highly recommend this case. But let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and slip it back in the case because, yeah, this is my baby. So it's pretty easy to get back in the case. Great phone, but I just want to start off with the build quality. It's Apple, as expected. The phone's build quality is great. It feels solid in the hand. It has some weight. It doesn't feel overly weighty, but it doesn't feel light and flimsy, which I really like. The screen is solid. When you're carrying it around, this is the 7 Plus, but it's not. I come from the Note 2, 3, and 5. So I'm used to having a big phone like this, but again, it's not like overwhelming in your pockets. I didn't feel the phone bend at all when I was pulling it in and out of my pocket, even when I had on some, dress pants that were a little bit slimmer fit. So, overall the build quality is great, and I have no complaints in that department. As I've stated before, this button is really interesting in that it is not a physical button, and I read that somewhere, but I had to cut the phone off just to convince myself that it wasn't, because when you press it, it gives you the sensation that it is, there's a physical piece of the phone being depressed, and there's not. Overall, this is a great phone, like I said, moving from, the build quality of the phone to, the camera on the phone. I would say the camera is very good on this phone. Probably, it was better. It's better than my Note 5. I don't know about, the exploding Note or some of the other phones, but the camera's really good. And one of the things that going to Vegas kind of helped me see, and I'll put some pictures up, while I'm talking about this, is that, this phone is great. A lot of times when you see reviews, people are, taking pictures in, a controlled environment, whereas in Vegas, stuff would pop up and I would just pull out my camera and take a quick picture. Sometimes my hands weren't the steadiest, and there was one point where we were on the Las Vegas Boulevard, and I took a video of NASCAR, and that's on another video on my channel. You can check that out. It was just random. I just pulled the phone out, I hadn't taken video before, and didn't even change the settings. I took it in 1080p, and it looked amazing. I haven't tried editing any videos or pictures, but that'll probably come at a later date. But the pictures are great. They turn out pretty crisp. The only thing I would say is, typical phone limitations in low lighting. It does a good job, better than most phones that I've had, better than any phone that I've had, really. The Note 5 comes close, but it takes great pictures, and it still can't match. Like, I have a Canon SX160 or something. It has like a 20x zoom, and it's about 3 years old, but it does better in lower lights. But again, guys, you gotta think, these little lenses have to take in, this is a pretty small lens or aperture to take in light, especially in low light environments. So when you have a point and shoot, or even a DS an SLR where it has a lens that's like 10, 15 times this size, it's going to be better in low lighting. But just for practicality and functionality, I wouldn't tote around a point and shoot or some kind of SLR, unless I'm a pro. But this will do just fine for you. The phone, as far as hardware is concerned, it's great. This is mine, just logging in. One of the biggest things that I love about this phone is my phone unlocks with I have a code on it. Like you can, there's a little, 6-digit code that I can put in to get in the phone. But for the most part, I don't use that. I use my fingerprint. And I had a Note 5 before this. Its fingerprint reader was about a third as good as this one. I mean, look at this. Cut the phone off. You activate the screen, and when I pressed to open it, it had already read my fingerprint and opened the phone. A lot of times, I can just take it, double tap it, that didn't work very well. Anyways, you can open the phone and tap it. The fingerprint reader is lightning fast. When you're going into apps, I don't think to date, all my apps that can be set up on what they call Touch ID, where it reads your fingerprint, and I've never had to do it twice. The only drawback I would say on that is that my Note 5, and I'll have to dig a little deeper, but on my Note 5, you could put like 3 fingers, register 3 fingers for your phone. And on this one, you can only do 1, which is, my thumbprint, which, like I said, the fingerprint reader is very accurate. Once you get into the phone, it's very quick, no lag. I mean, it opens things really quickly. This already had open, but it's pretty fast with opening apps like maps and things like that. Remind me later, dismiss, but we're zooming in, we're zooming out. The phone is quick, so it hasn't lagged at all. Very good phone. I have the 128 gig. Like I said, I'd highly recommend getting that, because these days you're adding so many apps to your phone, and they have so much more functionality that it's worth adding them, that you're going to take up more memory. And you're going to also, if you go anywhere, you have any friends, you're going to be, friends and family, you're going to be taking a lot more photos and videos. But this phone is pretty clutch. Signal wise, it's really good. Like I said, I have Sprint, and I had a Note 5 previously. That's another real world thing. There's, several places at my job, 2 bathrooms in particular, that I frequent, and I usually, check my phone after washing my hands and stuff. And there's 2 bathrooms where I did not get a signal with Sprint on my Note 5, and this phone does. So I think it, as far as signal capture, it's pretty good, pretty solid. The GPS is pretty accurate. I did use Lyft about 4 or 5 times when I was in Vegas. That worked really well. I never lost the GPS signal, things like that. So it's overall, guys, it's a really good phone. The last thing I kind of wanted to touch on, and call quality, excuse me. So call quality is great. I can hear people clearly. They can hear me clearly. FaceTime, as always, is going to depend on your signal. My aunt called me. She tried to FaceTime me, but she was kind of on the go. It was a little choppy, so that's going to depend on network reliability. But if you're on Wi-Fi or you're in a good spot, you can use it. It's not going to be 1080p on your screen for the most part, but it is fun, especially when you're talking with family members that you don't see very often. So I found that helpful. And lastly, the last thing I wanted to talk about was a sticking point that I was kind of perturbed about whenever I heard this phone was coming out, and that is the discontinuing of the 3.5mm headphone jack. So now you have this lightning jack with this phone, and you have to plug in your headphones there. And I've heard people say, well, how am I going to be able to charge my phone, listen to music? Really, who does that? I haven't done that. This phone, one thing I didn't touch on, has extremely good battery life. So it lasts the whole day and more, And so I don't think you're going to have too many issues where you need to charge your phone and listen to music. And if you do, you can put it on speaker and do it that way, or use Bluetooth headphones. But, you don't even miss. I guess my point about not having a 3.5 millimeter jack is you don't miss it. Like, this phone came with these headphones here. And these are stock. I thought about getting Bluetooth headphones, but these sound great. Like, I'm an over-the-ear kind of headphone guy. I don't have Beats or anything, but I have a couple pairs of Sony Studio over-the-ear headphones. And, these don't quite do as good as those, obviously. They're a little bit lower end, but you can hear bass on these. Most of the time with these types of earbuds, there's no bass. You get mid-range and treble, but these have pretty good bass. And because they have these little cutouts here, I think that's what does it. But I don't even really use, there's a dongle that came with it that you can use as an adapter for your old 3.5 millimeter headphones, because I haven't converted to Bluetooth yet. But these, are my primary headphones, because they have the mic on them. They have the up and down volume rocker there, and they sound great. They don't irritate your ear. Like I said, I was in Vegas. I flew to Vegas here, about a 3-hour flight on one leg, and I had them in the whole time. My ears didn't hurt or anything like that. I was wearing glasses, which can be an issue sometimes. But yeah, these are great. They plug in great. They sound great. You won't even miss the 3.5 millimeter headphone. Because like I said, your battery life is great. So you really, as far as choosing between charging and plugging your headphones, I highly doubt you'd run into that dilemma. Highly doubt it. One drawback of the phone, I would say, is it doesn't have a quick charge function. So I don't know if there are some third-party adapters or some upgraded, power adapters you can get. I mean, it's not the slowest charging phone, but like I said, I came from a Note 5 where you could plug that baby in, and in 15 minutes, I think it would give you like 45%, something like that. It charged really quick. This phone doesn't, but I don't need it, because it has such great battery life. And I was in Vegas, and I wasn't at work, so I was able to play with my phone a lot, take a lot of pictures, use it for Lyft, that sort of thing. So, it's really good. Connectivity is great with Bluetooth. I have a Bluetooth speaker that I use. It connects great. It connects to my Wi-Fi at home great. There's Wi-Fi at work. It's great. So, really no big complaints about the phone. The only other complaint I would say is that this Apple iOS is not as intuitive as Samsung Android, as the Android, operating system. With Android, they give you some tips when you first get the phone, and those are really helpful. But even beyond that, it's just, I don't know, certain things, and I'll maybe have to make another video about the OS and how it's not super intuitive. I didn't know, like when you scroll down here, it does, these alerts come up, but you cannot swipe over to clear these. You have to, hit a clear button. I think, just being able to swipe over and clear them off would be great. I don't know if that, really addresses an intuitive kind of issue with the phone, but this swiping up is pretty cool, but I didn't discover that for the longest time. And then also these buttons being touch sensitive. So knowing, just from having an iPhone previously, this is an example of, the lack of, or not being as intuitive. I knew that you could press down on these to kind of delete the apps. Well, a couple times I tried to do that, it didn't work, because I would press down and this would happen every time. I'm pressing on the app, and I'm like, how do I delete these apps? Because you first get a new phone, you're adding every app that you possibly can, and I was going to trim down. But it's pressure sensitive, so if you press a little bit more lightly on it, then these come up and you can, X out of these. But along with that feature, there were several other things that I had to get on in Google how to do, which I don't really think I should have, and I can't really think of those right now except for this one. Because again, this screen is touch sensitive, so it can tell, the amount of pressure you're using, which, can create some extra layers of functionality, which is great, but again, not the most intuitive, but look, I'll live with it. You know, I'm just part of it. May be just me learning iOS again, but I'm looking forward to using this phone for a couple years to come. You know, probably until the 8 comes out, but we'll see. But guys, that's my opinion on this phone, and yeah.